Overview of solitude and the benefits paying for being alone. On one point, if you have ever pondered, for instance, what makes it that seniors who like being alone are so fascinating, then you are likely to belong to this category. If you are an introvert, or maybe you are interested in how elderly people can benefit from their solitude, this article is for you. Here we will discover how amazing people who chose loneliness are and how older individuals live and act. In the complex world of today, people tend to have a wrong notion on what solitude is all about. Most people, when considering isolation, think of it as a lonely state. However, to many seniors, it is a blessed state. Who cherish solitude so remarkable. Whether you're someone who enjoys your own company or you're simply curious about how older individuals benefit from their alone time, this piece is for you. We'll explore the incredible qualities of older individuals who embrace solitude, highlighting the unique ways it shapes their lives and personalities. In today's fast-paced world, solitude is often misunderstood. It's typically viewed as loneliness or isolation, but for many older individuals, it's the opposite. Each person is able to use loneliness as a valuable asset for the personal development and introspection. As I have noted before, loneliness is not equivalent to solitude, but solitude is embracing of the self. Profound self-awareness. Among the most impressive positive traits of elderly individuals who prefer to be left alone is that they tend to know themselves well. They then foster wisdom. This is after several years of considering different realities around them concerning life, identity, and preferences. They don't rely on the outside input, nor do they require others to validate their self-worth. It stems from the working knowledge, educated realizations, and occasional reflective analysis of the world at large. For instance, a 70-year-old Margaret, a retired teacher. Examples that Margaret highlighted were personal reflection, journaling, and meditation, all of which Sai could perform during her solitary moments. These practices let her learn about herself she had never thought existed in her. In the 2 episodes where Margaret is introduced, her self-possessed bearing reflects the way in which solitude brings about inner enlightenment, freedom, and autonomy. The elderly people who prefer lonely life are yet again a class of people who can autonomously negotiate life on their own. By the time they grow up, they have learned how to count on themselves for direction when making decisions or when facing a challenge. It is this ability to be free that enables them lead productive, self-actualized lives devoid of regular outside assistance. Perfect example of this trait is John, a 68-year-old widower. Although he admits that he likes being alone, he is an egoistic man. Beware, solitude doesn't make one a dependent individual. Just see how John has mastered everything, from managing his pocket and traveling alone. His narratives of using errands and going solo on some adventures are quite inspiring, as much as they describe how he solves life matters on his own. That creativity thrives in loneliness is not questionable today. Creativity is another characteristic that Type 1 personalities just celebrate. Whilst many elderly people who value their solitude read, paint, write, garden, or perform other creative ways of spending their time. Lack of company allows them to think about their creativity aspects with no interferences. E.g., Mary, who is an 80-year-old woman and a painter, can wholeheartedly be said to enjoy her work extremely. Her home plays the host to several beautiful paintings, each of which narrates a different story. Mary once revealed that probably some of the best works she has produced are most certainly created during solitude. To her, being alone is a way to reduce pressure and get inspiration for thoughts and feelings in words and actions. A rich inner life. Possibly, the most important benefit that solitude brings is a full and rich psychological life. Cohort B. Older people who accept their independence spend most of their time thinking, reflecting, or meditating. These break times assist in molding them into becoming critical thinkers of the society and the universe. It is always interesting to engage them in conversation because they seem to have deep perception in their interaction. Clara, a senior citizen in her 80s, has many books and lot of experience in her persona as a librarian. I always learn something new each time I talk to Clara as she relates all the topics in literature to the lives we live. Her inner world is full, and as it is known that solitude brings more depth and develop wisdom in people, she can speak very helpful words on any topics. Emotional strength in isolation. Probably one of the most praiseworthy indicators of past-age people who happen to become solitary is that they have become rather robust emotionally. In the years they've learned to manage own feelings, take necessary actions to deal with stress, anger, or grief in life. They also retain positive emotional strength that enable them to endure dramatic stages of cancer experiences with appropriate maturity. A case example in point is Robert, a 75-year-old former soldier, sharp as a razor and full of wonderful stories from the war. In the movie, after the tragic death of his wife, Robert went out hiking and took comfort in nature. The fact that he has successfully coped with grieving and sought comfort within himself during such a difficult period is evidence of the potential of solitude to foster emotional strength. Gratitude and contentment. It is interesting to find out that loneliness creates the kind of wealth that makes one thankful for life. Self-sufficient seniors live their lives in terms of being happy with themselves and can be pleased with a simple walk in a park, tea, or a book. These ordinary things assume significance when done alone. An example of this is Elena, a 78-year-old lady who retired from nursing. Luckily, Elena very much enjoys going out to breathe fresh air in the morning. Listen how birds wake up and how everything else slowly stirs. I think she sees so much happiness in those everyday moments that we sometimes don't even pay attention to, and she's teaching us all about appreciation. Again, she is an epitome of contentedness, showing that true happiness can be found even when one is alone. At that moment, they can find happiness in the simple things, empathy and compassion. It also promotes empathy and compassion. Solitude may actually be good for the soul. This means that older people who are usually lonely dig deep into their minds to decode other people's experiences, hence effective coordination. That allows them to regain their mental focus and be in better touch with themselves, essentially better tuned into how others feel. Helen, 82, who lived in North Steps FJAs, was a retired social worker who cared passionately about other people. Now here is an introverted woman who spends most of her time at a nearby shelter, listening and helping other people. This is true since she has been able to establish effective appeals to emotions, hence becoming an important support of her community. Helen shows that loneliness can enrich a person and make him or her more empathetic and kind. Part of self-care involves setting boundaries in the addict's life and sticking to those boundaries. The last, but not the least important quality that is peculiar to older individuals who are ready to stay alone is that they have rather strict personal principles. They know that personal boundaries are also key to safeguarding mental, emotional, and physical health, as they set boundaries where necessary with other people. This ability to say no when it is needed most is very important for them to maintain their calm. My 73-year-old Aunt Beatrice is a master of boundaries. Another excellent clue is that she knows when to turn down an offer of sorts just to maintain her introverted portion of the day, and she does it gracefully and assertively. It's also a great life lesson to see Beatrice come to embrace herself and put her peace first, without guilt or shame. Appreciating relationships. This means that the elderly or old people who prefer to live alone are equally valuing relationships more than other people that are presumed to be in love. Though they may cherish their alone time, they appreciate the quality, not quantitativeness, of interpersonal relationships. Interacting with other people, they experience recharging, so they can effectively use the time of isolation. Uncle David, for instance, is 78 years and prefers spending his evenings alone, watching television. Despite this, he is very much a loner, and yet highly emotionally invested in the friendships he has and his kin. He shows them a good time when he is with them. Each second counts. It shows how human beings must ensure that they have a balance between being alone and being with people. Recommendations and self-development researchers have found that older people consciously choose to be alone, and they prove productive when alone, since they make use of the time thus gained to think and improve themselves. Alone time helps them review what went wrong and how things would have been done otherwise, and thereby enabling them to make much better decisions later. It enables them become better people through the self-reflection process. These men and women are able to change aspects of their lives according to what they have concluded will satisfy them through a process of life review. The last of the lessons learned from Frankenstein is that solitude is now the main method of constant personal progression. Soul and self-reliance. Older people also get to develop a good sense of self-esteem, and mostly this is due to the fact that they spend a lot of time alone. They have all grown to embrace themselves and are independent people who don't depend on others to be happy. That absence and ability to be at one with themselves is one of the best things ever afforded by solitude. Finally, self-sufficiency doesn't mean that a person is completely alone and can dispense with other people. It means being emotionally free as well as the mind freedom, or being strong enough to face various challenges without having to rely on someone. The psychological gain enables them to live more balanced, fulfilling lives. Solitude as a path to growth. Being single means to be alone, but it doesn't mean that you don't turn into something better during that time. Self-directed elderly people view isolation as a good chance to improve skills, ideas, and emotional stability. It is a road to gain invaluable experience and understanding not only the self, but the life as well. All this people have learned to be alone and to depend only on themselves and their strength in order to be capable of enduring. They have found out that time off is a chance to think, rejuvenate, and get much stronger. This helps them to live more fulfilling lives. Solitude and creativity. This is why one usually comes across lonely characters taking center stage in inspiring stories. Most elderly people who enjoy solitude are usually art lovers or they love intellectual work, such as painting, writing, among others. There are no distractions that prevent them from thinking and focusing on what they do best, which defines creativity. The life of Mary, the 80-year-old painter, described earlier in this paper, is just but an example of how solitude fosters creativity. She is an insecure woman with a complex personality, and a great deal of her best work has clearly originated from her times of loneliness and isolation. This demonstrates how those who are solitary can come up with great inventions at that certain time of their life. The power of reflection. People of more age who are single can think and ruminate a lot. It takes time to critically look back at their experiences in life, evaluate their development, and check their objectives. It helps them to go on changing, making better decisions, and open to new opportunities. The process of reflection remains continuous for these people. We can not only look back, but we use the result to look back and make positive changes in the present and future. That is the kind of wisdom which comes with the experience of self-searching and reflection on the past, finding peace in solitude. Those who have grown old, seeking solitude, have learnt how to live happily with themselves. They are no longer looking for some sort of an external stimulus to fill them up. They have made a comfortable, contented life for themselves. One of the most beautiful things about being alone is this capability to calm the spirit within. Through choosing time alone, they were able to develop their personal identities and learn how to stay calm as the surrounding world is very often unpredictable. It's a wake-up call that we do not have to be with people all the time to be content. Celebrating solitude. Lastly, the targeted message is quite simple. Solitude is not something to be avoided. It is something to embrace. Lonely elders prove that being alone as a lifestyle is not only productive, crazy, and stable, but also spiritual and free. Alone doesn't mean lonely. It's simply having the ability to enjoy navigating life on your own. Also, by introspection and solitude, these people teach us how we can turn the opportunities for being alone into the processes that contribute to our well-being and self-improvement. Final reflections. All things considered, it might be valuable for those of us who value solitude, especially in their later years, to contemplate that we are surrounded by men and women who have got a fortune of excellent worth. They show that solitude is a creative and enriching process, and that from awareness of themselves to building their character, these persons are all an example that one does not need company all the time. While walking through the tossing times, let us try to embrace our loneliness sometimes. It might also mean that we find something in ourselves that we never even knew before, strengths or characteristics. Working on accepting solitude, analyzing the decision of being alive, and enjoying the solitude.